Sometimes some movie producers spend so much energy in making an attractive trailer that the trailer is very attractive and the movie is mediocre. So it's going to be like that. But hopefully not too much of anticlimax.
Blockbuster.
Yeah. I think there's a new word that has come up in the last couple of years. It's called a flopbuster. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namaho Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Sindhuvevacha Pavidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Can we just request devotees, please come a little more forward, because as we anticipate more people to come, they'll have places. Thank you.
So I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And today I'll talk on a topic that is both very complicated and very simple. The complicated aspect of the topic is that what is the relationship between God and material world, especially when God descends to the material world. And the simple question which we'll be trying to address, among other questions, is say when the Lord descends to the world, so why does he act in ways that seem to not reflect his divinity? So for example, if you go to Rameshwaram, we have a place where Lord Ram is worshipping Shiva, although Lord Ram is considered to be the supreme Lord. And by extension, we will look at when things happen in our life, to what extent do we attribute material causes to those events? And to what extent do we see that Krishna is behind this? So basically, it's at a philosophical level, at a pastime level, and at a practical level. How does God function in this world? Okay. So now at a practical level, this probably matters the most to us, because when something is happening, and to what extent do we see that this is God doing it? So say now, suppose after this program there is prasad. No need to suppose, prasad is there. But suppose some item is not cooked very well. Maybe it got burnt. Then to what extent we can see that it was Krishna's plan that it will get burnt? Or is it, we can say there's no Krishna's plan in it at all? So that's the broad topic we'll discuss. So basically, Krishna's relationship with the material. You need to come here.
No, sorry.
Okay, put this down. Actually. So,
No.
otherwise you can see directly here. So I was doing a camp, and then some students were sitting here. We can't see, but we can see here directly. So then I told them, I don't know why. If you're seeing there, I like it. If you see here, it feels like a violation of my privacy. So, okay, what happened? So, going back to our topic, how does God interact with this world? So, if somebody asks you this question, what is the answer that you might give, or what are the verses that you might quote? What is the relationship of God in this world? How does God act in this world? Any thoughts?
Samam sarvabhuteshu.
Okay, so he is equal to everyone. That's one of the things. He's equal in the sense of being impartial. Yes, that's one way of looking at it. And sorry, he is the provider, sustainer, maintainer. We can say that. What is that? Maya Adhyakshana Prakriti. That is more of a overseer. He's the overseer of whatever is happening in this world. Adhyakshana. Sorry? Paritranaya sadhunam. So you could say he is the deliverer. At one level, you can say he is an intermittent deliverer. By intermittent, I mean that periodically he comes to this world, and whenever he comes, he delivers people. Any other things? He is sarva karana karanam. Excellent. He is the source of everything. The cause of all causes is a poetic way of putting it, but sometimes it's not exactly clear. But the source of everything. So including all causes also. Anything else? So Upadrashta is overseer, isn't it? So this is actually both verses. 9.10 can work. 13.23 can also work for this. Maya Adhyakshana Prakriti and Upadrashta Anumanta. Okay, so you're saying Anumanta. So we could say the permitter.
There's a phrase that says how Krishna reciprocates with the desires. So that's, you can say, reciprocator. Is there a word like that? Reciprocate is there, but anyway, English is a democratic language. So we can create a word if you want. Actually, there's a website where you can submit new words. You can create and submit. So yeah, he's a reciprocal. Ye thamam prapadyante tam sathaiva bhajamyaham. Okay, so how is that talking about his relationship with the world? I mean, he will, but then we already said he takes care of everyone, isn't it? Isn't it like overseer, deliverer? Okay, let's put it like protector. Protector of the devoted. Is the enjoyer, yes. That's one part we don't like very much, isn't it? We want to be the enjoyers. Yes. Bhoktaram yagatapsam, as we say. What is his attitude towards us? How does he see us? What is his relationship with the world? Is a very abstract thing, but with each one of us. Mamaivamsha. So we are all his parts. He's the whole, and we are the parts. That is, you could say that is more like the constitutional relationship. That is the nature of the relationship. But what is the emotion within that relationship? Yeah, Surudam Sarvabhutanam. This is 15.7, and then this is Suruda is the well-wisher, the benefactor. So so the Lord, when he relates with us in this world, there are many different aspects to it. So he's all these you talked about. I think we covered a significant aspect of the Lord's role in this world. Thank you. So let's try to look at something about. Now, these are principles. These are what we know from scripture, that this is how, these are the roles that the Lord is playing. Now, when we function in the world, say for example, we are here, and we are in the material world. So the materials can seem like a tunnel, but assume it is the material world. So now above this is the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, you can assume at the top is the Lord, is Krishna or Ram, whoever it is. So now, broadly speaking, when we function in the world, there are two things. We do some things, and then some things are done to us. Some things happen to us, isn't it? So when we do certain actions, and certain actions are done to us, so at that time, what is the role of the Lord over here? So if my action is being done, and if something is being done to me, so is the Lord involved in this? Indirectly, yes. How? Okay. So in one sense, you could say he's the person who set up the arena. So like say now this T20 World Cup is going on in America. So so now it's like most of the players are not Americans. The Indians or Asians are playing in it, even from the American cricket team also, whatever it is. But suppose, so you don't know about T20? That's interesting. Okay, that's. I appreciate your ignorance. Sorry. Yeah. Mm. So anyway, the point is that so when we function in the world over here, so right now say I'm speaking and you're responding. So is Krishna involved in my speaking and you're responding? How is he involved? So we could say at the in the T20 example I was giving is basically say America is involved in the sense that it's America has provided the territory. There are no American players over there. America has provided the territory. So and that is the basic level of involvement. Krishna has provided the arena in which we are functioning, the venue. But is there any further level of involvement? Dadami buddhi yogam tam. So he's given the intelligence. Yes. He controls our senses. Okay. So we could put it this way, that our capacity to do action comes from Krishna. So now, when we are talking about this over here, let's look at it from this perspective. When the action is coming from here, is the action coming entirely from Krishna or partially from Krishna and partially from us? Partially. Partially. So we could say that certainly I am desiring to do speak right now, isn't it? But my ability to speak, that is not something which I have entirely created myself. Certainly, I can say that I have studied, I have practiced, and that's why I'm able to speak. But there is a basic starting point of ability that we have, which we don't manufacture while we are in our mother's womb. Right? So it's a given to us. Somebody may have a great singing ability, and one of the pleasant things about here is all the kirtans seem to be led by the small children over here. That's nice to see the talent among the children. So there is starting ability that comes from the Lord. So we could say there is the ability without which we cannot act. And maybe then what comes from us is endeavor. Okay, you could say desire, desire which can grow into an endeavor. It's not just because we desire something happens. From the desire, endeavor is also required. So overall, when something is done to me, at that time, is the Lord involved there also? Sorry, He is the permitter. So for example, you could say if something is happening to me, in that also the Lord is involved. So now if we consider some other person who is doing something to me, then there also to some extent the Lord is involved in what they are doing. So now the question which we are going to discuss broadly here is that when I am trying to understand something that has happened, so when do I see that this particular action is, let's put it this way, and this particular action is being done, I see that this action is done by this person. And when do I try to say, extend the frame to say that this action is actually not just done by this person, it is also done by Krishna through this person. So how much should we hold somebody else responsible for what they are doing? How much should we see that it is God's plan that is acting over here? So now when the Lord descends to the world, say, let's look at certain actions. Let's look at Ram Leela. I have recently written a book on Ramayana, so I'm a bit in Ram consciousness right now, more than Krishna consciousness. So if we consider Ram kills Ravan, so is this done by something other than Ram? No, it's Lord Ram is doing it. How many of you agree with this? Okay. We'll come back to this. It is true, definitely, but there is, when the Lord descends to the world, there is always something more going on. So we'll discuss that. Now, if we consider now Vishwamitra has Vishwamitra takes Ram, and then they kill the demons like Subahu and Tadaka. So now, is this action done by Ram or Vishwamitra? Okay. So in one sense, it's Lord Ram who shot the arrow, but it's Vishwamitra who came up with the plan. So we can say both are involved over here. Now let's, for the time being, let's keep Lord Ram out of the picture. So now when Kaikeyi demands that Bharat become the king and Ram be exiled. So is this, okay, I think it should be put over here. Is this done by Ram or is this done by Kaikeyi? Kaikeyi? Okay. So let's put question mark over here for the time being. Now, it's interesting that actually Lord Ram later says to Bharat, when they're just returning back from the forest, while taking Ram's padukas back, he says, don't hold Kaikeyi responsible. He doesn't say, I am responsible. He says, this was an arrangement of destiny. So now, let's take it forward and say, now Marichi, he took Ram away. He allured Ram away. Now, was that done by Marichi or was that done by Ram? Both? Okay. Let's make it more complicated now. Now, Ravan abducted Sita. Now, was that done by Ravan or was that done by Ram? Sorry? Both? Okay. Okay. So yesterday I told something about Leela. Anybody was there? See, Leela is an answer which is, remember what I said? Yes, it is scripturally correct, logically dissatisfactory. Isn't it? It just doesn't satisfy us logically. Okay, if once it's true, but once you start saying it's a Leela, then everything can be called a Leela, isn't it? So then where do we stop to the point of saying this is a Leela? Hmm? Is everything a Leela? It's like in general, an answer that explains everything in general accepts nothing in particular, explains nothing in particular. It's like, say, if I let go of this phone, um, if I let go of this phone, what will happen to this phone? It'll fall, isn't it? So now, what is the cause of the phone falling? Well, you are polite. You would say my stupidity. But now somebody, if you say that this plane, this particular phone, it fell because I dropped it. Suppose the plane crashes, and a committee is formed to investigate what caused the plane crash. And some person with a little knowledge of physics says that, why do you need a committee? You're wasting time and money. I already know what is the cause. What is the cause? Gravity. Now, nobody will take that answer of gravity with gravity. So, why is that? Is it a wrong answer? Well, it is correct, but it is not the relevant answer. Because gravity can explain the fall of everything. What we want to know is, this plane, why did it fall at this particular time? The plane was designed in such a way that it should be able to fly in spite of gravity. So, why did it fall at that particular time? And that is the explanation that we are seeking. So, broadly speaking, now, say Ravana, who is abducting Sita, is actually taking Sita away from Ram, is causing pain to Ram. Now, to say that Lord Ram is causing this seems a little problematic, isn't it? So broadly speaking, it's important to understand that there are three factors for action. There is God's will, which is the supreme factor. So without God's will, nothing will happen. Then there is free will. And then there is evil. So by evil, what I mean, in our tradition, there's no such thing like a being like Satan who causes people to do evil. But evil basically means our dark conditionings. So why are we talking about this as something separate from our free will? Because sometimes we may not want to do something, and still we may end up doing something. So, as Arjuna asked Krishna, Atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichan api varshne. Anichan. He says, I don't want to do it. It's not my desire to do it, but baladivanyojitaha. It is as if I'm forced to do it. Something is from within pushing me and forcing me to do something. So basically, if we consider here, when some things happen, so we could say God's will is like the most important factor. Then free will is the second important factor, and then evil is a third factor. Evil means solidified conditionings which impel people to act in particular ways. So now, if we consider, say, this to be the material world, and we are an individual here, somebody else is an individual here. The Lord exists above this world. Oh, wow. So the Lord exists above this world as a transcendental being. So now his will is very much there in this world. However, the individual will, when somebody does something, so this is a situation where the individual is actually doing God's will. So, for example, Krishna tells Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhava sauvisachi. You become an instrument in my hands. However, we could say that God's will can be in one direction and human will can go in the same direction, human will can go in a completely different direction, and human will can even go in the opposite direction. Now, what does it mean if human will is going in the opposite direction? Then at that time, how does that human will work out? Say, for example, Krishna went as a peace messenger to seek peace personally. So he clearly wanted a peaceful solution. But Duryodhana didn't want it. So then Duryodhana's will here was opposite to Krishna's will. Now, if a human being has a will opposite to Krishna's will, then can that will be successful? What do you think? Yeah, the war did happen. Krishna's peace mission was not successful. So sometimes the human will can go against God's will also. Now I'll explain how this is possible, because we understand that God is omnipotent. So, what are your thoughts? How can human will go against God's will? He gives free will. Okay, and our free will is not an illusion. Isn't we really have free will? Sorry, our free will is not? Yes, that is true. Yeah. Yeah, they were successful sometimes. The first few days they seem to be successful. So, this is the paradox of karma, that now we can separate karma and bhakti, but we won't go into that technical right now. So if somebody wants to do bad karma, so broadly you can say bad karma is against God's will. Somebody wants to be cruel, exploitative, abusive. God doesn't want anyone to act in that way. So now, to do bad karma, one needs good karma. Now, how is that possible? To do bad karma, one needs good karma. See, to do anything in this world successfully, there are always factors beyond us that are involved. Say, suppose somebody comes to know that, in this particular bank, a lot of cash has come over there. And a dozen thieves may decide we are going to rob this bank. And out of those dozen thieves, dozen groups of different thieves, those 11 thieves fail, one succeeds. So why did that thief succeed? Because of good karma. Because of past good karma. Now their robbing right now is not good karma. That is bad karma. See, basically, by our past good karma, certain endeavors that we do in this life will be successful. Now, which endeavors we will do, that is up to us. So, to give a provocative example, Hitler, by his past karma, was meant to be a powerful leader. But he used that karma to become not just a powerful leader, but a powerfully ruthless leader, an atrocious leader. There have been mass killings and there have been mass murderers throughout history. But as far as our historical record goes, Hitler was the first person who brought industrial efficiency to mass murder. So that's why the word genocide the Holocaust, they can't be used very liberally. Nowadays, any and every killing is called a genocide. But he created actually those gas plants, use industrial efficiency to bring about mass murder. So my point here is that there's so many other people who might have wanted to conquer Europe or conquer the world, but they didn't succeed. Now he also didn't succeed, but he succeeded for some time. So for somebody to do something, even if it is a bad thing in this world, they need some good karma. So now, in general, each person has a certain kshetra. So if we consider, this is the broad framework of Krishna's will. You consider this to be like a upside down tree, or a upside down bowl, not a tree, sorry. So this Krishna talks about this in metaphor 9.6 in the Bhagavad Gita. Yatha akasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra gomahan. So Krishna's broad controllership, Krishna's will, is the framework within which everything happens. So now we could say if Krishna is at the top over here, Krishna is overseeing. Now the purpose of life is ultimately to go towards Krishna. And when we want to go towards Krishna, we are all on a pilgrimage, multi-life pilgrimage. So each one of us has a certain kshetra. So for example, right now if I get angry, I might just yell at you. If a local cop gets angry, then they might do some lathi charge, bayonet charge or whatever. They might shoot someone. If the president of America gets angry, or the president of Russia gets angry, they might nuke an entire country. Isn't it? So this kshetra, for some people, it might be very small. For some people, it might be much bigger. Now, within this sphere, within this kshetra, that we all have certain capacity within which we can act. Now, within this, Krishna's will is that we use whatever abilities we have, whatever resources we have, to come closer to Him, to do good. So, Krishna's will is in a particular direction, that we do good things. But if somebody wants, they can do opposite. Now, when they do opposite, are they defying Krishna's will? Well, yes. So when Duryodhana rejected Krishna's proposal, he was defying Krishna's will. So here, Krishna's will, it can have a range of meanings. One is what we discussed earlier, Krishna's permission. Now this is like the rock bottom. Nothing can happen without Krishna's permission. So we are talking about Krishna's will and human will. So there is Krishna's intention. So human will can act within this spectrum of Krishna's intention and Krishna's permission. So Krishna wants something to be done. So Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight. And he spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita so that Arjuna would fight. So that is Krishna's intention. And we could say the human will is aligned in this way, this is the best. This is the optimum use of human will. To do what God intends us to do. But the human beings can do even the opposite of what God wants us to do. So now, when say, we discuss some of the little more uncomfortable examples where Maricha tried to take Ram away or Ravan took Sita away. So these are cases where the individual wanted to do something which was not just different from God's intention, it was not God's intention at all. But the Lord gave permission. Now, without the Lord's plan, nothing will happen. The plan in the sense that without His permitting something to happen. So, what this means is that everything that happens is not necessarily what Krishna wanted to happen. When bad things happen in the world, when people treat each other cruelly, for example, it is not that Krishna wants people to do those bad things. They want to do it and Krishna allows it. That's why, if we consider 1.8.28 in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Manye tvam kalam ishanam anadinidham vibhu samam charantam sarvatra bhutanam yanmitha kalihi. He says, Lord says, I am equal to everyone, but when people fight, bhutanam yanmitha kalihi, it is because of their own animosity. So, it is not that Krishna from within Ravan's heart was telling Ravan, abduct Sita. Obviously not. It was Ravan who wanted to do it and the Lord allowed it to happen. Now we can go further and discuss later why he allowed it. But the point is that everything that is done by everyone is not what God wants him to do. So why is this important to understand? Because both from two perspectives. Now, the idea of free will itself. Now, if we really have free will, then it does imply that our actions have to be our actions. Because the logical consequence of free will is accountability, isn't it? We are accountable for our actions. So, suppose some crime has happened and the police are not able to find who is guilty. So, they arrest somebody who is innocent and make that person the fall guy. They frame that person. Or somebody has not committed any crime and the police have shackled the person's hands and they place a gun in the person's hand and they force him to press the trigger. And the trigger goes and kills someone. I say, now you are a criminal, you will be punished. Now, this would be horrendous, isn't it? So, if we force someone to do something and then we punish them for having done that, we would consider such a person to be a tyrant, to be a dictator, to be an evil person. So, if we say that actions done by human beings are to be attributed to God, and then when people do bad things, so it is God who is forcing people to do bad things and then God is punishing people for doing those bad things. So God becomes like this police who frames people and punishes them. So the denial of free will makes God evil. If we say if there is no free will, the effect of that is basically we are saying God is evil. Why is God evil? Because when people do evil things, it is God who is making them do that. But God doesn't do that. God is not evil. So this is like a wrong understanding. So when Ravan does something, that is because Ravan wants to do it. And the Lord allows him to do it. So in that sense, understanding when a human action is actually expressing God's intention and when it is simply expressing God's permission. They are two very different things. So, Prabhupada himself, for example. Now this applies even to great devotees. So we can say great devotees are always doing God's will. That is of course true. No doubt about it. So Prabhupada said, my books, Prabhupada says the books are written by Krishna. And that is true. But at the same time, when Prabhupada wrote those books, he did not make the author of those books as Krishna. Isn't it? We see they're Prabhupada's books. So yes, Krishna's, when great saints, great acharya like Prabhupada and other acharyas are speaking, it is God speaking through them. But are we saying that only God is speaking and they are not speaking at all? No. It is, we can see Prabhupada's personality is there in this. Prabhupada's voice is there and Krishna's voice is there. And they are in a harmony over there. But, so when we say the human being is doing God's will, that doesn't mean the human individuality is lost. It is that rather the human individuality is harmonized with God's will. So that's why when somebody is doing something, so say if I am here and somebody is here. So if the other person is doing something to me, now we can always say that without the Lord's plan, nothing will happen. But sometimes it may be necessary to look at the causal chain only till this place only. That why did Ravan abduct Sita? Because Ravan was lusty. Because Ravan was evil. Now, at this particular point, there is no need to say, oh, it was all the Lord's plan, it was the Lord's Leela. That's also one way of looking at it, no doubt. But it is not necessary to see God as the cause of everything. That, now we say, what about that verse? Cause, Krishna is the cause of all causes. Sarva karana karana. That is true. But it is important, Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is not the cause of all effects. Now what is the difference between cause of all effects and cause of all causes? Cause means that which has the power to bring about an effect. So Ravana's power to abduct Sita came from the Lord. If by his past karma or by whatever factors, he did not have that power, he would not have been able to abduct Sita. But the specific effect of abducting Sita was not something which the Lord wanted. So the Lord is the cause of all causes. Causes means the causal principle, the power to activate a cause by which some effect will come. So the simple example given in the Vedanta Sutra is that the clouds are the cause of all vegetation on the earth. The clouds are the cause of all vegetation. But that does not mean the clouds are the cause of which specific vegetation grows where. That depends on what kind of seeds are there at what place. Some places weeds might grow. Some places staple crops might grow. Some places orchards might grow. So God is the cause of all causes, not the cause of all effects. The effects come by individual use of free will. So I'll make two more points which will be a little complicated. Then I'll make 2 points just simpler and we'll conclude the class. Okay. But so basically the point I was making over here is that there is a time when we need to look at, okay, when this person is doing this action, it is the Lord who is doing it through this. So, but there is a time when there's no need to look at the Lord. We say, how can that be Krishna consciousness then? Isn't it? So, is there any example of, in the scriptures, when some person does some bad thing and some devotee sees the Lord's action in that? In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Sorry? Yes, good example. That's in third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. When Duryodhan insults Vidura, now Vidura at one level is hurt. Because whatever be their differences, Duryodhan was from a younger generation. Duryodhan from his son's generation. And for that person, especially in a traditional conservative society like that, where hierarchy is very much valued, to openly insult somebody who's from his father's generation. That was terrible. And what was even more terrible was not that Duryodhana spoke such words, but Dhritarashtra remained silent. Now, the harshest words of our critics don't hurt us as much as the silence of our friends. So, now both of these were painful. But at the same time, Vidura also saw, hey, now Duryodhana is telling me to get out of here. That is my opportunity to get out of the impending war. So, when Duryodhana told him to get out, that is something which Duryodhana did because of his own arrogance, because of his own envy. But even through Duryodhana's defiant actions, the Lord's will can manifest. It means there is some plan of the Lord. So Krishna consciousness, it does not necessarily mean to see Krishna as the cause of everything. It can be seen like that, but it does not necessarily mean like that. That Krishna is the cause of everything. But Krishna consciousness does not mean, it does indeed mean to see that Krishna has an opportunity for us in everything. Even if that person, Krishna has provided us, provided an opportunity, some concealed opportunities. Krishna consciousness means primarily to see not that this has been caused by Krishna, but whatever be the cause of this, there is some opportunity to serve Krishna in this situation. So, many times we get caught, how could this person have done like this? Now, especially somebody whom we love or trust, somebody who is very close to us, when they do something that hurts us, at that time, it's very easy to shrink our vision to just, how could this person have done this? I thought I knew this person. One thing that we come to know as we go through life is that we don't really know anyone. Not only anyone else, actually we don't know ourselves also. Isn't it? There are so many times when our actions, or you could say our reactions, whichever one, they surprise us. And surprise is a polite way of saying shock us. So, there is a certain level of unpredictability. Now, does that mean that nobody is trustworthy? No, not like that. Everybody has certain principles that are non-negotiable, and to that extent they'll be trustworthy. But there are certain things which we don't know about others, and people may act in ways which we can't anticipate. But the point is that if we reduce our vision, so when we are looking at others' actions, especially we are looking at others' hurtful actions. So one extreme, there can be two extremes. See them as the sole cause. That means to say, there is no God in this, that this person has done this, that's all there is to it. And the other, to not see them at all as a cause. So, whatever anyone does to us, oh, it's all the Lord's plan. Well, not necessarily. It's, say, Krishna, for example, tells Arjuna, tolerate, tam sitiksha swabharata. But that tolerance does not mean Krishna is telling the Pandavas, whatever atrocities the Kauravas have done to you, just tolerate that. See it all as my plan. No, he doesn't say that. He's telling the tolerance specifically over there means that you have a difficult duty to do in which you have to fight against Bhishma and Drona, tolerate the difficulty and continue in your duty. So, now what happens if we see the other person alone as the cause and nothing more beyond that? Then what happens is we get emotionally locked in that person. How could this person have done this? This person did like this to me. I will do this to this person. And then our emotions get, and not only locked, but because of our emotions, even our consciousness gets locked. Like, if somebody has hurt us and we are very angry with that person, we may go to the temple to take darshan, but if we hear that person coming or we, hear their voice, then we are more conscious of that person than of the Lord in front of whom we are taking darshan. Isn't it? So now that they have hurt us is true, and we have to take appropriate action. But if we don't want to remove Krishna from anything. But that does not mean we bring Krishna as the sole cause into everything. So let's take some examples, because the concept can seem a little more complicated. But the example to illustrate this is that, say, when Prabhupada was in India, and Prabhupada was trying to share Krishna Bhakti in India. And he was trying for almost 35, 40 years, and nothing was working. Not working much, at least. Now, Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur, had said that if you try to share Krishna Katha and nobody comes, then speak to the walls. That you should never lose your preaching spirit. Now, Prabhupada could have thought that, okay, maybe it is the Lord's plan for me that I should preach to the walls for the rest of my life. Now, Prabhupada did not take that. Now, what did Prabhupada plan? When his outreach in India was not successful, what did Prabhupada do? What did he do? Came to the West, yes. Why did he come to the West? What was his thinking? Yeah, Krishna has a plan for me, like an answer of gravity over here. Of course, that is true. But what was Prabhupada's thinking in coming to the West? Yeah, if Westerners practice bhakti, then what will happen? Why will Indians take it up?
They were at that time following West.
Indians are somewhat attracted to the West, infatuated by the West. They want to follow the West. So now it's interesting that Indians are attracted to the West. This is a Maya. Isn't it? It's an illusion. So Prabhupada was using one illusion to remove another illusion. One of Prabhupada's fundamental teachings was that, we are not our bodies. So white skin, brown skin, black skin, all of this is irrelevant. So the Bhagavatam, it is said sometimes we use one thorn to remove another thorn. So the point I'm making over here is Prabhupada looked for a material cause for his lack of success. When his outreach was not successful, he looked for a material cause. The material cause is that the infatuation of Indians with the West. So it is, now did he see Krishna's plan over there? He says, yes, Krishna's plan is, let me go to the West and let me try to share Krishna Bhakti over there. So he did not say, the idea of Krishna's plan didn't make him passive. Didn't make him, oh, what is Krishna's plan? I'll accept it. Yes, but Krishna's plan is not just what is happening to us. Krishna's plan is also what is happening through us. So Krishna's plan works both ways. The situations we find ourselves in, the situations, they are Krishna's plan. But our actions are also meant to be Krishna's plan. So Krishna's plan is something that happens to us and something that happens through us. So that Prabhupada was doing outreach in India at a particular time when Indians were not really very interested in their own tradition and culture and spirituality. You could say that was Krishna's plan. But then Prabhupada looked within that at a material level. Now, of course, when Prabhupada came to America, that was an act of great spiritual faith that he would come to America and that single-handedly he would be able to inspire Americans. His sponsor, she was not ready, Sumti Burraji was not ready to give him passage on the ship. She says, Swamiji, you are so old and America is so cold. So, Prabhupada still pushed on. So, the point is that we are going back to this particular point that Krishna is, if we say Krishna is the cause of everything, then Krishna is the cause of my lack of success in this particular service. That means Krishna wants that I should not do the service. So let me not do anything. Prabhupada could have said, yeah, maybe Krishna wants me to stay in Vrindavan, and let me stay in Vrindavan and glorify Krishna, write books, and that's all that is required. But Prabhupada didn't see it that way. So the problem here, if we go back, if we see the other person as the cause of everything, then we become too emotionally locked in that. But right now we are looking at this. We don't see the other person, or we don't see the material aspect at all. If we don't see the material aspect at all, then we may basically become dysfunctional, or at least ineffective. Say, for example, if I am speaking and suddenly the sound system goes off. Now, I can say maybe it is Krishna's plan. Krishna doesn't want me to give this class. It is more likely that the organizers don't want me to give this class. So they tried it in one temple in India. All the speakers would go overtime. They just turn off the sound system. They did it for the morning Bhagavatam class. It didn't last for very long. But the thing is that if we start looking at, say, if the sound system is not working, if I'm giving a Zoom class and the Zoom doesn't work, and I say, okay, it's Krishna's plan, Krishna doesn't want me to give the class. Well, not necessary. Maybe I should try to fix the internet. Maybe I should try to get some other device. We shouldn't stop trying to endeavor at a material level to fix things also. That is required. So think just attributing everything to Krishna and not looking at the material causes can prevent us from working at a material level to fix things. So that's one aspect of it. So we don't want to become dysfunctional. So like if we have cooked something and it's not come out very well, to say, oh, this is Krishna's plan. Well, maybe if it is not cooked well, we try to fix it. Isn't it? Now, those who have cooked it, they should not be thinking it is Krishna's plan. If the food is served, those eating can say it is Krishna's plan. So, the idea is where there is something we can do about a problem. There is something which we can do about a problem, then we need to see that, okay, I need to do what I can about this. But when something can't be done, now that doesn't necessarily mean Krishna wanted it to happen that way. It could be somebody's mistake, it could be somebody's misdeed. But whatever it is, that time we can accept it. So, Duryodhan's harsh words were not something which, in one sense, Krishna forced Duryodhan to speak those. No, Duryodhan spoke them himself. But Vidura was expert enough to see, okay, there is some plan of Krishna over here. And what is the plan? Okay, let me become detached from this kingdom. Let me just get out of the war that I have to fight. That otherwise I'll have to fight if I am here in Dhritarashtra's kingdom. So in that way, we can see the opportunity to serve Krishna in every situation. Now that opportunity may be created by the other person's intention. That opportunity may be independent of that other person's intention. So, but that is Krishna consciousness, to see the opportunity to serve Krishna in every situation. Now, if we don't see the immediate cause, what happens is we become dysfunctional, we become ineffective. So when the devotees in London did the Rath Yatra for the first time, the devotees in London were very, very ambitious. Now, right from the beginning of our movement, there have been devotees who were liberal and devotees who were conservative. So the devotees who were in New York were a little bit overall more conservative. They were interested in the morning sadhana, the serious practice of principles. The devotees who went to San Francisco, Shyam Sundar Prabhu and others, they were more ambitious. They were a little bit loose about strictly following the rules, but they wanted to do big things for Krishna. And Prabhupada was big enough to embrace both of them. So now, when most of the devotees who went to UK, they were more from this liberal group. So they wanted to do big things for Krishna. So they decided we'll do Rath Yatra and we will make the Rath cart bigger than it has been ever before. They made the Rath cart very big. But then what happened was they didn't make the wheels big enough correspondingly. And then the Rath moved for some distance and they just collapsed. It was a PR disaster. The devotees were completely dejected and they wrote to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, did this Rath collapse because of our poor devotion? And Prabhupada replied, it collapsed because of your poor engineering. So when there is a material cause, that is something which is perceivable for us, we need to look at the material cause. That doesn't mean we are not looking at Krishna. We are looking at, okay, why did this happen and how can I fix this? Now, even when something has happened, there could be some plan of Krishna even in that situation. But the specific cause of that situation may not be Krishna. So here, as I said, I'll make one more complicated point and then I'll conclude with something simple. See, there is a difference between cause and purpose. Cause means where something is coming from. So sometimes the cause may be even unknowable. Now, why did things happen in this particular way? The cause may be unknowable. The purpose is where something is meant to take us. So it is meant to take us. And this cause, this purpose of everything ultimately is Krishna. Whatever happens in our life, it is Krishna who wants to draw us closer towards Him. Now, how we will go closer to Him, that will vary. Sometimes it might be just by tolerating the situation. Sometimes it may be moving away from the situation. Sometimes we may be fighting to correct the situation. But that depends on the time, place, circumstance. However, in every situation, there is an opportunity to come closer to Krishna. And it is that opportunity that we need to be tapping in our lives. So Krishna consciousness means to see in every situation the opportunity to serve Krishna, the opportunity to come closer to Krishna. And as a part of our service to Krishna, we may need to analyze, okay, why has this happened? And how can I deal with this? So then we may use our material intelligence, including the material causal analysis, to see why this has happened and what can I do about it. So, as I said, if we go to the other side, when we become locked in just, okay, this person did like this, then what happens is, this happened, say, when one of the leading disciples of Srila Prabhupada had some difficulties in following some principles, and then he left the practice of bhakti. He was a leader, and the devotees were shocked. And so the devotees went to Prabhupada, how could he have done like this? It's such a terrible thing to do. And Prabhupada just broadened the frame of reference. Prabhupada said, Maya is very strong. In this world, anyone can become tempted, anyone can become distracted. We need to be careful. So now, does that mean there was no specific cause why that particular thing happened? Yes, that when that devotee later came back to Prabhupada, he talked with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada addressed that issue. But sometimes when we get too caught, why did this person do like this? Why did this person do like this? And so it's very difficult to understand why people behave the way they do. If we can, well and good. But if we reduce it to only this much, why did this person do like this? And either we can't figure it out, or we ascribe dark motives to that person. And, oh, this person is a terrible person. Maybe they are terrible. Maybe they are going through a terrible time. We don't know what is happening. So, of course, we don't want to let that person keep hurting us again if they have hurt us. But at the same time, we don't want to let ourselves be emotionally locked in that person. Sometimes we just look beyond that person and see that this person, whatever is happening, there is again that there is some plan of Krishna in this. Now, what might be the plan of Krishna? Again, that we have to use our intelligence. How do I deal with this person? So, on one side, Lord Ram told, don't do anything to Kaikeyi. Don't hold her responsible. But Lord Ram did not have the same attitude with Ravan. He said, Ravan. Now, Lord Ram was ready to forgive Ravan also. But Ravan showed no sign of reform or remorse at all. And then he had to be punished. So the idea is that, so I'll conclude with 2 points over here. And then, no, it's not the summary first. So the idea is that for each one of us, yesterday I talked about using our intelligence in bhakti. Intelligence can have many different meanings, but intelligence at one level is to basically look at cause-effect connection. One aspect of intelligence is to look at cause-effect connection. It's like if somebody is angry with us, we use our intelligence to figure out, did I do anything to hurt this person, to annoy this person, to anger this person? Well, maybe. At least let me use my intelligence to figure that out. So here, when you look for cause-effect principles, the principle that is told in the Mimamsa is all about cause-effect analysis. There are 6 systems of philosophy. But broadly speaking, the principle is move from the drushta towards the adrushta. Drushta means the visible. First, look for immediate or visible explanations. Then move towards invisible explanations. Invisible means more subtler, more distinct. So look for more concrete, specific examples or specific causes for it. And then beyond that, if we can't, we can look for broader causes. So I say if guest comes to our house and the guest says, I'm feeling very cold. And we say, what to do, this world is dukkhalaya. This world is a place of distress. That is not at all appropriate. So, now, is it wrong to say this world is a place of distress? That is perfectly valid philosophical point. That is a perfectly irrelevant question. So, now, if we start escalating towards like abstract philosophical principles as an explanation for everything, then we miss out on practical solutions. I was talking with one devotee, a young couple in Australia, both of them are very intelligent. And in some ways, in our Krishna consciousness, in the early days, we have a lot of renunciation, or at least we think we have a lot of renunciation. Afterwards, from renunciation comes a little realism, where we are at. So, both of them are intelligent devotees, both of them are writers. I'm an editor for Back to Godhead. So, both husband and wife write articles for BTG. And so, I'm in touch with both of them. So, this Prabhu was telling me that, he says, I'm having a lot of difficulties in my marriage. And this is happening, that is happening. And he said, I got a realization. I said, what? He says, okay, I don't like to speak this, but anyway, I'll speak it, I'll refute it after that. So he says that, Krishna has given me such a disagreeable wife to make me detach from this world. So, I said, is that a realization or is that a rationalization? So, see, when we rationalize, this word? Rationalize. When we rationalize, what we do is, we tell rational lies. So it could be that maybe have you looked at like the drushta explanations? Why is she upset with you? Have you tried to address those issues? So now, without trying to take practical steps to address issues, if we immediately jump to a philosophical explanation or even to a transcendental or devotional explanation, then what we are doing is, we are simply, in the name of being devotional, we are being irresponsible. Because our responsibility is not just to become detached from this world and attached to Krishna. Well, that is ultimately. But we all have a responsibility to serve Krishna in this world. Now, Prabhupada himself, for example, his wife was not very supportive of his bhakti. She was not a non-devotee, but she was a pious person. She didn't have any missionary spirit. But Prabhupada, when he was married, he after he met his spiritual master, he said, if I had not been married, I would have just joined my spiritual master's mission. But he said, now that I'm married, Prabhupada said it would be unfair to my wife and my child if I leave them now. So, the point I'm making is that what we might think of as a realization, it actually be a rationalization. Rationalization means that we want to take some shortcut and then we use philosophy to take that shortcut. I was doing college outreach. That is how I was my main service for the first 10 years of my bhaktis. So I was in IIT Kharagpur, and there was one boy. He just joined in the first year, and he said, I want to become brahmachari. I said, you've just come, just practice bhakti, do your studies, complete your degree, and then afterwards you want to join, you can become brahmachari. So he said to me, I want to surrender, and you are obstructing my surrender. So he said, I am like Bali Maharaj, you are like Shukracharya. So I reject you. So he left the college and he went from Kharagpur to Mayapur. He joined the Mayapur temple. And then, after 6 months, when I went to Mayapur, I talked with authorities. He stayed in the temple for 3 months, and then yad gatvan anivartante. He just left there. He couldn't sustain it. So, in general, say for now, when he was studying, relatively speaking, anything in the material world is not easy to do. And as compared to that, when you start practicing bhakti, bhakti seems very easy, bhakti seems enjoyable. And you may think, oh, I just want to get out of this world. But actually, if we really want to serve Krishna steadily, serving Krishna steadily in the world is also not easy. Just coming and dancing in kirtans or just taking darshan, that may be easy. But if we really want to make serious spiritual advancement, it means taking responsibility in Krishna's service. And taking responsibility is not easy. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantasya drudhavrataha. So in 9:14 in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that my devotees endeavor with great determination. Now for all of us, we need determination practicing bhakti because our minds and senses are distracted. We have so many conditionings. But here Krishna is talking about pure devotees. Satatam kirtayanto mam. They are constantly glorifying Krishna. And even for them also, yatantasya drudavrata. Even for them, it's difficult. They require great determination. Why? Because in this world, to do anything worthwhile is difficult. To do even something materially worthwhile, it's not easy. Somebody has built a Fortune 500 company, somebody has started an organization, somebody has won some awards. They may have no spirituality within them. But in the material sense, they are sreshtas, they are successful, they are leaders. And they have to have some talent, some commitment, some intelligence by which they achieve those things. It's not easy in this world. And even as devotees, when we are serving Krishna, if you want to do something substantial for Krishna, it's not easy. So when we rationalize, what we are trying to do is, we are basically trying to use philosophy as a shortcut. But this doesn't last for very long. So that's why I always start from the drushta explanations. Okay, if there's something like this is happening, what could be the cause of this? Now, is it possible that sometimes logically we might not be able to find any explanation at all? It's possible. But don't assume right from the beginning like that. So, if you are trying to do some surveys and devotees are not helping, we should immediately jump to the conclusion, that nobody wants to help me, nobody likes me, everybody hates me. Well, no. Maybe there is some practical, some logical explanation for that. So look from the drushta and move towards the adrushta gradually. So when we have this attitude, then sometimes even within bhakti otherwise, we can get into the victimhood mentality. Like, oh, nobody understands me. I am so sincere. But my sincerity, apart from Krishna, no one understands. Now, is it possible? Well, it is, but it is possible in rare cases. But we shouldn't assume that actually, let me say, okay, if people are not cooperating with me, people are not helping me, people are not understanding me, maybe there is something about me which needs to be fixed. Maybe there's some way I can improve. So, I said one last point I will make is, see, when we are here in this world, say this is the spiritual level and the material level. Now, we often think of serving Krishna means we want to get out of this world and go towards Krishna. And that is true. But we serve Krishna also through this world. What we do in this world is also service to Krishna. So we could say this is more of immersive bhakti. Immersive means we turn away from the world, immerse ourselves in Krishna. Krishna talks about this in 12.8 in the Bhagavad Gita. Mayi eva manadhatso mayi buddhim niveshaya. A little bit 12.9 also, that you fix your mind on me. But subsequent verses 12, 10 and 11, he's talking about how we want to serve him in this world. This can be called as inclusive bhakti. Inclusive means we understand that Krishna doesn't just exist in the spiritual world. Krishna actually exists everywhere. In fact, even this world is contained within Krishna. And this world is also the domain for service for us. So, if we want to practice only immersive bhakti, then we don't have to look at any material cause effect at all. Just say, okay, whatever has happened, it is If Krishna wants me to run away from this world and absorb myself in Krishna. So that's one way of looking at it. But if we still want to function in this world, if we still want to serve in this world, and it would whatever ashram we are in, whatever professional role, whatever family role we are in, then we also need to become aware of the material cause-effect factors that are involved, so that we can serve Krishna properly in this world. And in that sense, we see, okay, when this service is not working out, there is some Krishna's plan over here. There's something for me to learn over here, some way for me to grow. But that doesn't mean that I just see only Krishna and don't see anything else. So, Krishna consciousness is meant to lead to an expansion of our normal vision. It is not meant to lead to an elimination of our normal vision. That means with my normal vision, I will look at certain explanations. So, but I understand that there is something more than the normal causal phenomena also. So we need to look at both Krishna consciousness, if we start seeing it as elimination of our normal vision. We just don't look at things from a normal perspective. This is actually because even our normal vision is coming from Krishna, isn't it? The ability. So, for example, if a guest in our home says, "I'm feeling cold," then okay, yeah, I think in this room the wind comes a little bit more. Maybe we'll provide you some extra heater or something. That's normal vision. So we don't eliminate our normal vision. Rather, there's a expansion of our normal vision, where we start seeing that, yes, there are causal effect factors which I normally consider, but beyond that also there are other cause effects I consider. And that way, our Krishna consciousness will help us to become functional more effectively in this world, while not getting locked or trapped in this world. Not letting our consciousness get trapped in this world. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. We talked about what is Krishna's role in this world, or seeing Krishna in this world. What does it mean? What does it not mean? That was the broad topic we discussed. So, when some things happen in this world, so the actions in this world, they can have broadly three causes. There is God's will. What is the other thing? Free will. Evil. Evil is our conditionings which lead us to certain actions. So now, now God's will may be in one particular direction, and the human free will can also be in that direction. It can be a different direction. It can be in the opposite direction. So our free will, its scope can be from God's intention to God's permission. So everything that happens is not necessarily what God wanted to happen. It is something which God may allow to happen also. So therefore, when we are looking at how we function in the world, so we understand that Krishna is the cause of all causes, but not necessarily the cause of all effects. That means that effects might come from some other cause. And therefore, when we are trying to analyze what caused something, the cause of something that is happening to us, then the two extremes are to see only the material cause and not see anything else at all. And the other is to not see the material cause at all. To see only the material cause means, oh, this person is such a terrible person, and this person did like this person is so terrible. We just become consumed by that. We become emotionally locked over here. If we don't see the material cause, we become incompetent, we become ineffective, because we can't function in the world. So what we see over here is that we see that ultimately Krishna is providing us some opportunity through every situation. But what is that opportunity? For that, we need to use our intelligence. And intelligence means we may need to consider the material cause also. So we don't see Krishna as the cause of everything, but we see Krishna as the creator of some opportunity. And that opportunity has to be discerned with our intelligence. And that connection, when we're looking for the cause of things, we start with the drushta. We start with the immediate concrete causes. And then we move towards the adrushta. So if we just jump immediately towards the adrushta, we may become irresponsible. And saying that actually seeing the adrushta is my realization. That may not be a realization, but that may be a rationalization, where I am simply using the philosophical to run away from my responsibility of doing the practical. So we don't want that, and that's why we need to expand our understanding of bhakti. Bhakti means we understand that I want to go towards Krishna directly, but I also want to serve Krishna in this world. And if I want to serve Krishna in this world, then I need to look at material cause effects also. We discussed many examples from the Shastra as well as from Prabhupada's life to illustrate this balance of how, when we are functioning in our lives, we don't reduce our vision to the material, but we also don't reject the material. So Krishna consciousness is an expansion of our vision, not an elimination of our normal vision. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Yes.
Thank you very much. So again, beautiful class, and probably needs another 3 hours to fully digest everything you indicated.
A few years ago, such a comment would have delighted me. Now it has me worried.
So, my question here is that to some degree we try to rationalize to the best of our capabilities, and at some point we seek to, we seek this transcendental reason just because it becomes too complicated. It's a rabbit hole that you can never get to the end of. And so, for this couple, perhaps maybe the next step could have been counseling or
Yeah.
speaking to somebody. And then maybe, I don't know, psychological evaluation or whatever be that. And there's going to be multiple steps that we can do within this material realm in itself. Versus at what point, and that point where we draw a line in the sand might be different for different people. At what point do we say that I've exhausted material causes and I'm just going to leave it to Krishna and chant and be happy? So maybe if you can help provide some understanding of where do we calibrate, and is that calibration personal, and if so, how do we understand if we've actually calibrated ourselves enough?
Yeah. So I'd say 2-3 different things over here. It's a very important question. That to what extent do we stop material reasoning? I would say it doesn't have to be necessarily the two separate. It's like if there is some problem, the spiritual and material can go in parallel. That means that at a spiritual level, we pray to Krishna, we try to connect ourselves with Krishna. There's nothing wrong, in fact it's desirable if we are facing some issue to try to maybe intensify our sadhana, to do those activities which strengthen our connection with Krishna. But the problem is when we use the spiritual as an excuse for not doing the material. Say if somebody is sick, and they've been, when we talk about relationship, it becomes very polarizing because there's another person involved. But let's take something which is a little more dispassionate. Say somebody's been sick, and they've been sick for a long time and they're trying this treatment and that treatment and that treatment, nothing is working. Or should you just give up trying any treatment? Well, maybe that's what is sometimes required. But maybe in some cases, okay, I don't want to get so fixated in looking for this treatment and that treatment and that treatment, that treatment, that I forget Krishna. That I think, okay, after this treatment works, then I'll practice bhakti. So, no, we continue our bhakti. Sometimes we may even intensify our bhakti. And then we also explore. So, in general, the material and the spiritual can go in parallel. The specific thing which I was talking about is when we use the spiritual as an excuse for not exploring the material at all. Now that is called as spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing essentially means we use Krishna to stay away from Krishna. Now what does it mean? How can I use Krishna to stay away from Krishna? See, there is, say for example, if I have a relationship issue, then maybe through that relationship issue, Krishna is telling me that maybe I have to develop maybe I have to become more sensitive, maybe I have to become more humble. There is some virtue which Krishna wants me to develop. But I say, and maybe through counseling, through therapy, through discussions, it's a little painful for me to acknowledge, okay, at this incident, this was the thing I did, this was the thing, this was I did. And those are relatively, it's difficult. It's sometimes humbling. It can be humiliating if I take it that way. So that's a painful process. Instead of that, I can say, what is the use of going for these therapy sessions? What is the use of having all these discussions? I'll just chant extra rounds. Now, and chanting is transcendental. All this therapy, it is mundane. Now, okay, it's possible. That's one way of looking at it. But my chanting extra, relatively speaking, it may be much easier for me to chant extra than rather than actually confront the issues that I have. That maybe I am not being, as I said, being humble or sensitive or responsible or whatever it is. So developing those virtues can also be seen as a part of bhakti. So Krishna is speaking to me through that particular relational situation, telling me, okay, I need to develop this virtue. But I am keeping that Krishna away, and what I am doing is, I am using Krishna in the form of extra chanting to stay away from Krishna who is trying to tell me something through the relational situation. So sometimes what happens is, we think of Krishna consciousness as bringing Krishna into our consciousness. That means, say, I have to do something. If I am sitting somewhere, read a book, chant the holy names. Bring Krishna into our consciousness. And that is true, no doubt. But another way, Krishna consciousness can be opening our consciousness to Krishna. Not just to Krishna, to see how Krishna is already present. So for example, if somebody goes to a beautiful scenic place, maybe a mountain or something like that, now there we could be reading Shastra and that's good. We could be chanting and that's good. But we could be observing the sky, observing the mountains, and their greatness could remind us of Krishna. And we could say that we can chant or read books anywhere. If we've gone to a particular place, we open our consciousness to the vastness of nature. And now, will that necessarily remind everyone of Krishna? It depends. Some people might be reminded, some people might not be reminded. But the point is that Krishna consciousness is not always about forcing Krishna into our consciousness. Because when we are forcing, that means basically what we are trying to do, we have a plan. This is how I will be Krishna conscious. Krishna consciousness means chant, read, do this. But sometimes Krishna may want us to be Krishna conscious in a different way. Isn't it? So that means, okay, in this particular situation, open my consciousness. So the material and the spiritual can both go together. And when do we decide the material possibilities are very exhausted? I don't think we can ever say material possibilities have been exhausted. You can only say, I have become exhausted. In exploring the material possibilities. And it's possible we get exhausted. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one has to reject or abandon or get completely frustrated. Sometimes like different relationships may work best at different distances. Sometimes, if a relationship we're having a lot of problems, then we just need to lower our expectations in that relationship. And then what happens is that if you understand, okay, this person is of this kind of nature. Now, why they are like that, why they can't become like that, we can't figure out. But then, okay, maybe this particular thing I can't really expect from this person. I can't count on this person for this. And then we may have to have that particular need, that particular aspect fulfilled from some other avenue within the boundaries of dharma. So that is something which individually has to be explored. So it's possible to get exhausted with material exploration. That's fair enough. But then that doesn't mean we use the spiritual as an excuse to not do the material. It just means that, okay, my material situation, I may need to adjust a little bit. Prabhu was mentioning about the monks podcast. So I generally would do a talk with senior devotees one at a time. Sometimes I have two senior devotees and we would all have some discussions. So one time I got a suggestion, can you have both these devotees together? So then I asked one of them, and he said, that devotee is a very good friend of mine. And you know why he's a good friend of mine? Because we meet each other once a year in Mayapur. So even among devotees, some people may just not get along with each other. Devotees can also, our ultimate value is Krishna. But the way we function and move towards Krishna, it may be different for different people. So sometimes we don't have to break a relationship, but we may have to lower the expectations in a particular relationship, and then we find space for each other. Okay? Thank you. I know we already gone a long time, but maybe one question. Any Mataji, do you have any questions? Yes. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhu, for coming late. Very interesting. Thank you so much. So, to your marriage example, the husband-wife example, I was thinking.
I gave this example in one class. There's one devotee who said, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Anyway, go ahead, please.
I was thinking a counter example could be Maharaj Parikshit, where he was cursed to die in 7 days. And he didn't make any effort materially on the material platform to try to adjust that curse. Like, I used to wonder about this. I said, he could have gone to the sage and said, oh, please change those 7 days to 7 days of Brahma. And, let me, live. You can't get rid of it. But he doesn't try anything. He just takes it as a plan of the Lord. And I was wondering, maybe that has to do with our level of advancement, that when we are more spiritually advanced, we can try less material options and depend more on Krishna. But when we're less advanced, we should act on our level of advancement, like our where we can accept it that it's a plan of the Lord. Or how would you explain this situation?
Yeah, I think spiritual advancement is definitely one factor in it. See, the same Bhagavatam gives two distinct examples. That in the first canto itself, when Kali is creating disruption in Parikshit Maharaj's kingdom, at that time Parikshit Maharaj doesn't say, oh, anyway, Kali Yuga is going to come, this is the way of the world, what can I do about it? He actually goes out to search for the influence of Kali Yuga and counter them. So we do see that active, that inclusive aspect of Parikshit Maharaj's bhakti. It's not that it is not there at all. Now, in that particular situation, the Parikshit Maharaj he takes that particular mode. That, okay, I want to become detached from the world. I made a mistake, and although the curse that I got is not proportionate, but I accept it. So overall the Bhagavatam and the Gita, while the Gita and the Bhagavatam both are in one sense talking about bhakti. There are other philosophies in it, but both of them are talking about bhakti. But the Bhagavatam, the Gita's focus is much more on inclusive bhakti. And, or you can say this worldly bhakti. This worldly means we need to function in this world as a matter of bhakti. The Bhagavatams is much more of immersive bhakti. Immersive means other world. Just focus on the other world. Turn away from this world and focus on Krishna. Now, Arjuna could have also seen it that way. Isn't it? Okay, why fight against our relatives? Let's renounce the world. Krishna didn't want him to do that. So, I think that was Arjuna less advanced than Parikshit Maharaj? I wouldn't say that. Krishna had a particular plan for Arjuna. And we see in the Bhagavatam also, there are other examples. We have the example of Prithu Maharaj when there's a famine in the kingdom. He doesn't tell all his citizens, oh, it's all your karma, just endure it. He works to counter it. And Shibi and Ranti Dev, they're ready to sacrifice their own body to help those. It's, in one sense, in all these pastimes, the specific help that they're offering, it's completely material. Their consciousness may be spiritual, but the help that they're offering is completely material. It's a part of the royal responsibilities of a king to provide even for the material welfare of the citizens. So they were doing those responsibilities. So, in one sense, it is that Parikshit Maharaj felt that I have made a mistake, and he says that I'm grateful that the consequence of my mistake is coming to me alone, not to my kingdom. I am only cursed, nobody else is cursed. Now it was disproportionate, but he accepted it. And it's his glory. But does that mean that is the only way? Not necessarily. We can say that Prabhupada at times, when Prabhupada was in Jhansi, and when at that time he had started the League of Devotees, and somehow the people who were supporting him wanted to use that particular land for something else, a property. And then Prabhupada said, it's not worth fighting over here. Prabhupada just walked away from there. So if we say that is Prabhupada's spiritual advancement, that's Prabhupada's renunciation. But then, maybe 10 years, 12 years down the line, when Prabhupada had become fairly successful globally, he got the Juhu land. And when they tried to steal the Juhu land from him, Prabhupada said, if he wants to steal Krishna's land, he will have to go over my dead body. Prabhupada fought over there. So my understanding is that what is anukul for Krishna's service at a particular point. Now how is that to be decided? I think each devotee will decide that individually. So yes, it is not an unreasonable explanation at all. That to say that, okay, this is Krishna's plan, Krishna wants me to get detached. But we have to actually evaluate, am I growing spiritually by this? Am I actually taking responsibility to grow spiritually by this? If that is not happening, then, as I said, it can be either irresponsibility on our part, we're just choosing a shortcut. So now the test I would say of Parikshit Maharaj's thing is that he was not being irresponsible is that he actually took a very serious vow. 7 days to sit and fast, not taking food or water. That shows a level of spiritual seriousness that very few people can actually muster. So, yeah, if we, as you rightly said, if somebody is looking only for the spiritual explanation, not doing any material counters, then after that, they should not be complaining about the lack of material facilities for their spiritual surrender. Like somebody says, oh, I just want to surrender to Krishna. But then, okay, I'll go to Vrindavan and surrender to Krishna. But then they go to Vrindavan and say, hey, the prasad is not so good over here. So, now, is that a valid concern? Of course, it's a valid concern. But if somebody is saying, oh, I am so detached from everything material, then that should not be such a big concern for that person. Isn't it? So, in one sense, we have to be honest with ourselves about how best can I serve Krishna in this situation. And one more point I had is this connection is that when somebody is, say, looking for the direct spiritual explanation or refusing to take any material course of action, I think it may also depend on the context. Like if some young devotee is doing some services and they have tried 10 services and they have all failed, and the devotees become frustrated. At that time, the devotee says, okay, I'll go to Vrindavan and chant 192 rounds every day. Well, maybe you don't no need to do that. You are young, you have full life ahead of you. There are so many ways that you can serve Krishna. But say suppose somebody has got terminal cancer and they tried various things and nothing seems to have worked. And nowadays with something like cancer, one of the things especially that happens in devotee community is that you get so much unsolicited advice. And now it's not nobody is a illusion, but try this and try this and try this, and I know this. And sometimes I know devotees who had something like this, like just processing through all the advice that you get, that itself can be overwhelming. And it's a matter of life and death, so it's really very serious at that time. So now if some devotee has tried various things and nothing has worked, and they may decide, okay, I tried for 1 year, I tried for 2 years, I tried for this, and think that, okay, now I'll just go to Vrindavan and I'll just focus on Krishna. So then I think that's, in that situation, it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. So the circumstance in which we are serving or functioning, and the level of spiritual seriousness or commitment that we can have, those are two broad factors that we need to consider. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that makes a lot of sense, and especially the point that you were saying, trying to understand the will of the Lord and working accordingly. So obviously, this person is married. Krishna's the way out is the way through. That's what you were saying. That Krishna wants me to put my effort and endeavor in this situation, because I'm in this ashram. Whereas Parikshit Maharaj at that time could understand that this is the will of the Lord for me to listen Bhagavatam. So I guess that's the hard part: understanding what is the will of the Lord, and then trying, based on that, making the effort in pleasing Him.
See, I feel it becomes problematic when somebody in an authority position bypasses our material explanations and gives a spiritual explanation. Then it can be irresponsible on their part. It's like, say, I mean, this is a terrible thing, but I'll just share this. I was talking with one devotee. The devotee was young Mataji, she was doing a lot of book distribution, and then she got married, and then she was expecting a child, and then she was not doing so much book distribution, and she was the leading book distributor. This happened in one country somewhere. I won't mention that. So then she had a miscarriage, and then she told her ashram leader, another Mataji, and she said, Krishna has removed this obstacle for your book distribution now. Now, what a horrifying thing to say. Now, is it that Krishna cares for his book so much that he kill babies for that purpose? What kind of conception of God is this? And then I talked with that ashram leader, and she said that, that's what, when Narad Muni's mother passed away via a snake bite, he saw it as Krishna's arrangement. I said the key difference is he saw it. Nobody else told him like that. Isn't it? It's a very different situation. And he was living in a forest, a snake bite, it's killed. It's dead. So depending on a particular person's situation, at that time they may need emotional support, they may need practical help. Not that immediately we try to. So sometimes what happens is, even if this senior devotee was well-intentioned, it just comes off as completely heartless. It comes off as, we don't really care for people at all, except as tools for pursuing our purpose. We say, it's not my purpose, it's Krishna's purpose. But still, how it comes off, and it's not philosophically appropriate also. You can find out a philosophical justification for anything. That scripture is such that for any point you can find some example and justify it. But it's that our humanity should not be lost in the name of our spirituality. So I gave the example that when Abhimanyu was killed, Arjuna is shattered, and the Mahabharata has a whole chapter where Arjuna is devastated and Krishna is consoling him. Krishna doesn't say, "Hey, just 13 days ago I spoke Bhagavad Gita, you forgot it already? Matra sparshastu kaunte shitoshna sukha dukkadaha or dhiras tatra na muhyati, I become adhira." No, Krishna doesn't go in that direction. Krishna is very empathic and supportive at that point. So I think especially when we are in authority position, our primary focus should be, how can I help this person? And philosophy can be one resource, or like a adrushta explanation. The invisible explanation can be one resource. But when that becomes the sole explanation, and we're not ready to offer anything else, then it becomes our spirituality can actually erode our humanity. So that's what's my main concern in making this point. Okay, thank you. Do we have time for questions? I've already it's been quite long. Okay, yes, Prabhu.
I was thinking about, you mentioned about the cause and effect as well. So especially when it comes to threefold measures, like Adhyatmic will be more, especially for us individual. And then coming to Adi Baudik, I just kind of thought of giving an example. Prabhupada said if the country, in the country or the region, they kill cows, then it will be a calamity. So I was thinking about Israel and whatnot, those wars going on. It's again, you said somebody had good karma and they're doing bad karma, right? So in that effect, one devotee is there, Krishna conscious devotee is staying in Israel. How can he understand what is going on?
Okay. So the point of war is being caused because of mass slaughter of animals or cows. It's a philosophically valid principle. I don't think we can use it to make some empirical correlation. So in general, Krishna says, Gahana karmano gati. So the nature of the world is that the world is a domain of Maya. Domain of Maya means that it is not necessary that philosophical principles will always be made manifest through the workings of this world. Like we can say that a devotee may die very peacefully and we say, this is how Krishna protects his devotees. But a devotee may die in an accident also, isn't it? So there is the departure of Bhishma, which is glorious, but there is a departure of Abhimanyu. He was just killed unfairly, alone, with nobody around him, nobody there to remind him of Krishna at that time. So the material world, we cannot expect that it will always demonstrate spiritual truths. Sometimes it may, and when we are going to use material incidents as demonstrations of spiritual truths, we have to be sufficiently rigorous in that analysis. So now how exactly karma is going to work and what karma is going to work where and when, that's difficult to say. So I have seen some devotees try to do this, but I don't think it works very well. That is it that the parts of the world where there is greater animal slaughter, are they necessarily affected by greater violence? Is it that the parts of the world which are more vegetarian are affected by lesser violence? I'm not sure we could make a correlation like that. Because this is the nature of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga in one sense means that the Maya and the Moha is greater. So the way to see, or our capacity to see spiritual truths or even philosophical truths in action, that becomes much, much more diminished. So I personally wouldn't ever, if a war is there, let's look at the immediate geopolitical cause for the war and stop it over there. To go into a philosophical level, specifically in terms of animal slaughter, well, it's difficult to say. In the medieval times, when there was Islamic invasion of India, so many soldiers were killed, and India was traditionally a land where the cow was protected, where animals, vegetarian. India was probably one of the most vegetarian countries in the world. Non-meat was always eaten in India also, but it was not the prominent thing in India. So I don't think we can make a correlation like that. So can the empirical point toward the spiritual? Definitely it can. But can it be a decisive case all the time? I doubt whether it can ever be decisive. And can it be a convincing case? Yes, sometimes. When it is convincing, we have to ourselves, I think we should play the devil's advocate ourselves before making an argument like that. This is a philosophical truth, but if we are presenting it to people who do not accept the philosophy, then in general, there may be a scriptural truth. And the scriptural truth can have a scriptural explanation. And there can be a logical explanation. So what becomes especially alienating for people is when we are giving a scriptural explanation and presenting it as a logical explanation. The two are different things. So by logical explanation means people should be able to see the cause-effect connection from a logical perspective. So to give an example of this, say if we don't want to eat meat, and we are in some official dinner or something like that where meat is being served, we say I won't take meat. Now we can give a logical reason over there, which people can make sense. Okay, that when I came to know how much violence is there in the production of meat, I decided I don't want to be a part of it. Or I found that vegetarian food has it has many health benefits. That's why I'm taking it. Now, if we give a scriptural reason for that, anybody who eats meat is going to go to hell. Now, that is true, but people are going to say, you go to hell right now. So, these are two different pramanas. And we need to know which praman we are using where. When Prabhupada started the Bhaktivedanta Institute, he wanted that was for scientific outreach. He said, using scientific evidence, we should present spiritual principles. Now, to what extent it is possible, that will have to be evaluated. But we cannot go to a scientific conference and quote Avinashi tu tadviddi and sarvamidam tatam. And say, therefore, we say that the consciousness comes from the soul. If we want to make a scientific conference, we have to give hard scientific evidence for that. Is it possible? Well, definitely. There's a lot of evidence, for example, about how consciousness doesn't seem to be reducible to the brain. So we have to build a proper case. And I think it's very difficult to build a case in this particular domain. Okay, last question.
Prabhu, thank you so much. I just wanted to share something. It's an appreciation of your class, and as Prabhu was started his introduction to you as you are my hero. For me and my sister, you have always been our hero. So I just wanted to appreciate your class because I'm going through some health crisis, and a couple of months ago I approached a senior devotee, like supposedly one of my mentors, and I was expecting help from them, and it was right in front of Kishore Kishori. Me and my sister went there and shared what is happening with me right now, something really concerning. And their first answer was, Mataji, we are devotees, we know in this planet or that planet, if this is Krishna's plan, you just go and serve there. And me and my sister started to cry, like in front of Kishore Kishori. And I'm like, we know chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, we are not this body, but I am not ready to die right now, I came here to ask you something, like, help me, like this is something super concerning, and my parents are worried, and we both live here by ourselves, so you are like our parents, so it was like, when you said that how spirituality sometimes can erode our humanity, so that point really struck me a lot today. And your mantra, like I want to share with everybody, like because I always feel that how we use philosophy sometimes, and you always say philosophy needs to be used to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comforted. Like that's a mantra from you. So we shouldn't be using philosophy to we should afflict someone who's like super comfortable, but we should not, like a person who's afflicted already, we should be comforting using the philosophy, not do it other way around. And we always do that, So something super nice today. I really love it, Prabhu. So, and the second thing, in relationship with the same devotee, like who is one of my mentors, I was having super relationship issues with them. Like I could not accept what they were doing or saying. And I approached them and I said, Prabhu, I need to talk to you. Like I have issues. Like, and they were like, Mataji, Krishna is cause of all causes. And then, because I hear you all the time, I send the Gita daily that Krishna is cause of all causes, but not the cause of all effects. So I was so audacious to send my kind of mentors your Gita Daily article that please don't excuse yourself by saying Krishna is the cause of all causes because he is not the cause of all effects. So Prabhu, this is just like a little appreciation for your class today. It really like touched my heart. Like, so thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. It's on behalf of the movement, to whatever capacity I have, I would like to apologize for that kind of answer. It's terribly discouraging, and it's good that you are connected with a broader community of devotees, so that that one answer doesn't become the only version of Krishna consciousness that we know. So that devotee might also be well-intentioned. We don't want to judge anyone's intentions, but everybody within the broad rubric of Krishna consciousness prioritizes certain things, and if we are not comfortable with that, then we need to find out those devotees whose understanding of Krishna consciousness is something that works for us. That's why we need like-minded association. Like-minded association is, we all talk about this quite often, but I'll just make 3 points about this. First is that, how do I know what like-minded association is? That, especially not the association, like-minded, I would say specifically guides. Not just equally what, but first is, we understand their mind. That means if they give some classes, they give some explanations, those make sense to us. Otherwise, sometimes some classes, okay, we hear respectfully, but we end up with more questions than answers. And not more questions out of curiosity, but because of confusion. So we understand their mind. Then second is, they understand our mind. That means when we speak something, they understand where we are coming from. They don't just immediately judge us and label us and you're like this, you're like that. If that is happening, then we really can't connect with them. And then third is that they help us understand our mind. That means, okay, what I am thinking, okay, I understand where you're thinking, where you're coming from. And you're looking at this from this perspective, okay, till this point it is right, but maybe here you're missing this. So our own mind's reasoning it cannot be rejected. It is that rather, whatever reasoning we are doing, generally, we are meant to build on that reasoning further. So sometimes our previous conceptions have to be rejected for us to gain higher understanding. But generally, it is whatever previous understanding we have, we build on it. So they help us understand our mind. And it is important for us to, if we are to sustain in bhakti, to find at least one or two like-minded devotees. Otherwise, it becomes very suffocating for us to actually continue in our bhakti, because just as we need oxygen for breathing, our heart needs understanding. We need to be understood. If you feel that nobody is understanding me, then it becomes we may be spiritually nourished, but we will become emotionally tortured, emotionally starved, and that's not at all a healthy way to practice bhakti. Okay? So let us all pray that Shyama Gopi Mataji's health recover and that she can continue her wonderful services along with her sister Shyama Saki Mataji for a long, long time to come. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की श्रील प्रभुपाद की गौर भक्त वृंद की
His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki. Hare Krishna, everyone. I just want to make a couple quick announcements. We could go for lunch or we could stay for another hour and a half if you like. So lunch